tutorial in the CAD block series. All right, in this one, we're going to do CAD block 3. And there's a few new things that we're going to throw in here. We're going to show you how to make a reference plane, all right, to make this angled wedge cut. You'll notice the angled wedge cut is not perpendicular or at a right angle to any of the other surfaces, so it's kind of unique. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to create a new document. And we're going to call this CAD block 3. Oh, this there we go. Okay. So just like before, I'm going to start with my front view. I'm going to create a new sketch. All right. I'm going to go normal to it. All right. If the planes are visual distraction for you, then you can turn them off. In this case, you already know how to do that. So I'm going to leave them on. I'm going to click, drag, drop a point down. And then I'm going to go to my linear sketch pattern, select that point. And just like before, I'm going to give myself a grid of 8 by 8 dots. Okay, and I'm going through this kind of quickly because, we already did this in 2 previous instances. So this should be, a pretty tried and true method for creating a snap grid for you. Incidentally, other softwares and will have the ability to turn a snap grid on and off. This is just not a feature in OnShp. So this is why we're creating this grid of dots for us. It's a little bit of a workaround. So I'm going to left click here to confirm my grid of dots. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change the name of it. I'm going to call this snap grid. And I'm going to call this front. All right, if you want to change the name, you can just click on this pencil here and it allows you to change the name. So instead of saying sketch 1, it says snap grid front. All right, we haven't done that before, so I figured I'd add that in on this one. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my front plane. Okay, I can select it here or I can select it over here. And I'm going to right click and create a new sketch. Okay, on this sketch, I'm going to create a rectangle. Let's hit F to fit. Okay, I can zoom in more with my scroll wheel on my mouse. If you're not using a mouse and you got the trackpad, you're going to do a 2-finger swipe up or down to scroll or to zoom in and out. So with that corner rectangle, I'm going to click and drag out, and I'm looking for 1.5 by 1.5 inches. Notice how it tells me 1.5 by 1.5 inches. Perfect. That's all I wanted for this sketch. So now I'm going to green check. I'm going to select that rectangle, and I'm going to do an extrude. Okay, I'll zoom out a little bit, right click and drag to see that it's extruding the wrong direction. I can click on this arrow to reverse its direction. Okay, it's the same as clicking on this arrow up here. I'm going to change that to 1.5 inches or 1.5. And that gives me my basic cube. All right, so now I am going to turn off my 3 reference planes. Okay, and I'm going to go to this side here and I'm going to make a new sketch. So I'm going to click on the right side of my cube, right click, make a new sketch. I'm going to go view normal to my sketch. I'm going to drop a point down here in the corner, and just like before, I'm going to create a sketch pattern. So I'm going to do 8 by 8, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, and then click to confirm. So I've got my grid of dots. I'm going to come up here, instead of calling it sketch 2, I'm going to call this snap grid right, and check it out. So now I have 2 snap grids. Okay, and this will become important to us in just a minute. So the first thing I need to do is I want to put the little tunnel that goes in the underside of this. So I'm going to come over here to my right side. Okay, I could click on my right plane, okay, but it's easier for me to put it right here on the side of my cube. So I'm going to click off, make sure I don't have my right plane selected. I'm going to select this surface, right click, and create a new sketch on that surface. I'll right click in the design space and view normal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my line tool to put in the notch tunnel that goes underneath. So there we have it. So I'm going to green check with sketch 2 selected, so I can select it over here in the design tree. I'm going to go up to my extrude, but in this case, I don't want to add to it, right? I don't want to add, I want to cut into it. So I'm going to use remove, and I want it to go through all. And if it's red, then come down to merge with all. And I'll green check. So now we're all the way through with that. That's good. So the last thing I need to do is I need to figure out how to do this notch up in the corner. Okay, the notch up in the corner is unique. It's not at 90 degrees to anything else I've got. So in this case, I need to create a reference plane that allows me to cut at that 45-degree offset angle or compound angle. So the easiest way to do that is for me to come up here and use what's called the plane tool. I can create a reference plane. Now, a reference plane can be created in a variety of different ways. One of the easiest ways is to use the 3-point plane. So I'm going to come to my dropdown, choose 3-point, and guess what? I have points that I can reference from my previous sketches. So I'm going to come off this corner 1, 2 blocks. I'll come off 1, 2 blocks in this direction. All right. I'm going to rotate a little bit so I make sure I grab the right one. There we go. And then I'm going to come off the corner down 2. Notice how that gives me a reference plane. All right. So with that reference plane, I'm going to green check. It's now listed here in my design tree as reference plane. I'm going to turn off visibility for both of my snap grids. Okay. And then on that plane, I'm going to create a new sketch. All right. So I'm going to go to new sketch with plane 1 selected. Okay. And if I look at this from the front, you'll see, my sketch is off at kind of a weird angle, and that's fine. So I'll right click, view normal to my sketch. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the circle tool. What I want to do is I want to cut out this corner. So I'm going to go to the middle and just drag out a circle on that plane. It really doesn't matter how big it is, so long as it's bigger than the notch I'm trying to cut off of this. So I'm just using it as a cutting plane, essentially. All right, so you can see my circle there. Okay, it fully encapsulates where I want to cut. So now I'm going to green check. I'm going to select my circle, and I'm going to go to extrude. I'm going to do a remove. Okay, and I want to make sure I'm going in the right direction. Right now, it's going down into my part. So if I click on the arrow, I can reverse that. And I'm just going to set it for through all. I don't want it to go a specific distance. I just want it to get rid of that entire corner. So setting that for through all. If it highlights as red and you don't see this corner getting removed, then just check off where it says merge with all. But usually it should grab the part scope or the part 1 as the merge scope and recognize that automatically. So I'm going to green check. All right. So now you can see that corner has been removed. Okay. Are there other ways to do it? Yeah, but that's the easiest that I know. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to plane 1 and turn that off. Okay. And now I'm ready to make my drawing of this part, right? So let's go up here to our isometric view. I can see everything is there that's supposed to be there. So I'll come over here to where it says part 1, right click on that, rename it to CAD block 3. And then I'll right click and create a drawing. I'm going to use the Rivertech template that we created previously. And I'm going to use 4 views once again and click OK. And then hopefully this will load up pretty quick. There we go. So there's our 4 views. All right. Our Rivertech logo's there, right? We got the class name, my name, and the name of the previous project. So I'm going to double click in here and change that from CAD block 1 to CAD block 3. Green check. And just like before, I'm going to add in my typical dimensions. So I want the overall height. I want the overall width. And I want the overall depth. Okay. I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to dimension my notch. We'll add that in. So I want to know the width of the notch. That's 1/2 inch. I also want to know how far it is from one edge. So we can do that and put that in there. Okay, what you'll notice is it doesn't quite fit, does it? So in this case, I can move my dimensions over to here, right, to help make it a little easier to see. Okay. Or instead, if I hit escape, I know that this whole thing is 1.5 inches. So if I dimension one half of it over here and the other half of it over here, so I'll go back to my dimension tool and dimension this segment, what you'll notice is I can derive or I can calculate the dimension for this as being 1/2 inch in width. Okay, and then I need to know where the height of that is. So I'll grab that and bring that in. And I want to try and put this somewhere where it's going to be relatively clean. All right, I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to drag this into here because I can now. Right. So now I know the height of this. All right, I know the width of this. Um, I don't know anything about this, so I could add some dimensions for that. So if I go to my dimension tool, right, I can dimension that as being 1/2 inch there, and then 1/2 inch there. Notice how now all of a sudden it's getting in the way of this dimension here. So if I hit escape, I'll drag this and I'll bring this out. All right, so you can see how that tidies things up a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna drag this out just a little bit further. There we go. Okay, and I don't know the height of this, so I'll bring this out, line that up with that one, and then I'll add in the dimension here. All right, so now I have this dimension, so I can reproduce this if I want to. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna hit the F key to fit, and you can take your screen capture of yours and add it into your documentation. And that's the end of the CAD block series, CAD blocks 1, 2, and 3. There are other CAD blocks that we haven't done, and maybe we'll do those later on this year, give you guys some challenges. But for now, the next series we're going to get into is the pen. All right, so when we get into the pen project, you're going to be drawing all the different parts to the pen kit that you're going to assemble, and you're going to make into a 3D printed pen. So good luck.